Hello YouTube! Today in the Naughty Librarian, I am going to go over some awesome recommendations for books by Black authors. So as you all know, February is Black History Month, and it's important to read books by authors who have a different cultural perspective than you. I grabbed a bunch of books that I've read by Black authors, and I wanted to give some recommendations of awesome books to pick up for Black History Month. To start things off right, I want to go with Forbidden by Beverly Jenkins. Beverly Jenkins is like OG romance novel author. She is awesome and she's really sassy and I love her Twitter. And she writes these really cool, intricate historical romances, and they're very interesting because they're from a different cultural perspective. Because you know, you can read a lot of Regency era England, but there's not a lot of brown people around. So when you write a historical romance featuring people of color, it's a completely different story, and there's completely different stakes involved, and it's really fascinating. And she writes fun and spunky heroines. There's usually like drama, and it's just dramatic historical romances. They're dope. Like, totally check it out if you're into historical and if you want to get a different cultural perspective. I also have two books by Alyssa Cole. I have A Princess in Theory and A Duke by Default. These are both part of the Reluctant Royals series. They're both contemporary romances, and they kind of follow, you know, reluctant royals. A Princess in Theory is about Naledi, who is a woman of color in STEM, and Thabiso, who is the prince of the Solo. So he's a real-life African prince. Basically, Naledi's been getting these emails for several months saying, hey, we think you're the long-lost betrothed of this African prince. Send me all your personal information so we can check it out. And obviously she thinks like, okay, Nigerian prince scam. But it actually turns out it's true. Naledi was adopted, you know, orphaned, adopted in the United States, but she was his long-lost betrothed childhood sweetheart thing. So they get back together, and it's really cool. It's really sweet. A Duke by Default actually takes place in Scotland, so it's very different setting. This follows Naledi's best friend Portia, and she takes on an internship with a Scottish swordsmith. I know this takes place in modern times, but he still makes swords. But I mean, don't you want to see a hot Scottish guy like whipping swords around? Like, I think it's just for the visuals, like, let's be real. Portia's an interesting character because she is trying so hard to learn to believe in herself. She kind of suffers from ADD, and so a lot of things that are involved in like organization and like being on time for things are very difficult for her. So she's always been the hot mess friend, even though she's super intelligent, so she's trying to get her shit together. Then she meets Tavish, and she does some digging because she likes digging on the internet, and she kind of finds out, oh hey, your dad was a duke, so you're a duke now. So technically he's a duke by default, and she kind of finds out all this stuff about him, and she kind of helps him fit in with high society, and it's like kind of a slow burn romance, but like really steamy, so recommend. I also recommend Rafe by Rebekah Weatherspoon. This is about a doctor named Sloan, and she has these two twin daughters, and after a nasty divorce she moves to Los Angeles, and she's trying to find a nanny for her twins. Then enters Rafe, who is like super buff and bearded, tall, burly guy, full sleeve tattoos. He's like, hey, I'm a nanny. And surprisingly, he's really good at everything that nannies do. He's good at cooking, he's good at homework help, he's really sweet around the kids, and then like he's like really good in bed too, because I don't think that's part of nannying. I shouldn't say that because that makes it sound weird. He and the mom, extracurricular activities. It's like a hot single mom banging a male nanny. It's like, it's exactly that, and it's wonderful. Like, if you just want something fun and light and fluffy, perfect. Buff male nanny, like why would you not want that? I also have Pasadena by Sherri Smith, and Pasadena is kind of like neo-noir. It's about a girl named Jude, and the first page of the book, beginning of the book, her best friend has been found dead in a pool. So she is trying to like solve this mystery, like who killed her friend, because she doesn't believe her friend committed suicide. So it goes into like a very kind of noir type of story where she's like hunting down clues, and then there's an ex-boyfriend that's around, and Jude herself is very much like a noir hero because she's kind of an asshole, but like that's important to the story though, because in noir None of the characters tend to be likable, but they are fascinating. Jude has a like dark, twisted past, and it's really dramatic, and like these characters are so like angsty, and it's fun. If you want just like a light neo-noir, like this is your book. I also recommend The Wedding Date by Jasmine Guillory. Like this book is super hypey and all over BookTube, at least in the romance channels. This is about Alexa and Drew. Alexa is like a curvy, kind of really successful, works for the mayor, black woman. And then Drew is a successful pediatrician and he's white, and they meet in an elevator randomly. And he's like, hey, I need a date to this wedding. Do you want to go? And she's like, okay. And then they go to the wedding and there's like this big attraction to them. Part of the story is about them tackling the challenges of being in an interracial relationship, and also part of the story is that they're long distance because Alexa lives in Oakland and Drew lives in Los Angeles, so they're a bit long distance. And overall, it's kind of just a rom-com. It's, you know, they have a meet cute, they meet in a stuck elevator. How meet cute is that? Oh my gosh. And then, you know, there's struggles in the relationship, like, are we dating, are we not dating, what are we doing, you know, that whole dance. And then, you know, spoiler, it's a romance, obviously it turns out okay, but it was a fun book, it was interesting. I also believe it is her debut novel, so check it out. I also recommend Everything, Everything by Nicola Yoon. Ooh, I put a lot of tabs in this book and they're all bent to shit. This was turned into a movie, so I feel like I have a little bit more leeway with spoilers. It's about a girl named Maddie who basically has been kept inside of her house her whole life because she is allergic to everything. So she lives in a bubble. She's one of those bubble kids. And then this boy moves in next door named Ollie, and they kind of find this weird way to communicate with each other through like windows and signs and messages and stuff. And like a really kind of cute romance grows out of it. And still she believes she's allergic to everything, but she's also 17, so she wants to experience life. She wants to take that risk, and Ollie is a big part of that. And like my only concern with the book is that it's like she's willing to change a lot of her life for a boy rather than changing it for herself at points. But I mean, she is 17, so you know, what are you gonna do? But it's a really interesting take on an obstacle stopping a relationship, is that like I'm literally allergic to everything. We can't touch each other. So it is like an interesting take on that. It's actually written really interestingly. There's a lot of multimedia in here, so there's a lot of art, and it's just a fascinating read. I recommend checking it out. I have two books by Brandy Colbert. First I have Little and Lion, and then I have Finding Yvonne. Little and Lion is about a blended family living in Los Angeles. We follow Suzette, who is a teen whose mom married Lion's dad. His name's Lionel, but they call him Lion. And so they have this weird blended family because Suzette and her mom are black, Lion and his dad are Jewish and white, so blended family very much. And it's kind of about their brother-sister relationship because Lionel has bipolar disorder, so it's a lot of them trying to like figure out how he exists in the world with this disorder, and like how it affects his life and her life, and how to live with someone who has that illness. So it's a lot of family dramas, a lot of like mental health rep in here. And also I really liked Suzette because while she doesn't always make the best decisions, like all the decisions she makes sense. So if she does something dumb, it makes rational sense why she would have done that. Like, I like that Brandy Colbert lets Suzette be messy and maybe doesn't make the best decisions always, but like, you understand why she makes the decisions that she does. So there's still a rationale there, which is like a fine line that you don't always get when characters make bad decisions. Because sometimes you read about characters making bad decisions and they're just for like no reason. Like, Suzette has reasons for making bad decisions, so it's also really cool. It's also LGBTQ because Suzette is bisexual, and yeah, it has a lot of representation. It's a cool, interesting family drama. Then you have Finding Yvonne. It's about a girl named Yvonne, and she also makes some poor decisions in here, but the reasons why she makes the decisions that she does, it makes logical sense. She is a girl who feels very lonely because her mom walked out on her when she was a kid, so she's been growing up with just her dad, who's kind of emotionally distant. And her one constant in life was playing the violin. and her like dream was to like graduate high school and go to a conservatory for college where she can play violin. And she's coming to finally realize, I might not be good enough at violin for that. So her life is kind of falling apart, and she's kind of looking for solace in some of the wrong places because she does get pregnant. So it's a very high stakes here. I like that Yvonne does find inner strength within herself. Like, she has some tough choices she's gonna have to make in this, and it's just an interesting read. She always writes these great female characters who are like really complex, and you understand their thought process. Even if they make bad decisions, you understand why they do it. And that's really important because, I don't know, it helps the character feel like more of a real person rather than fictional. So yeah, she writes really vivid, cool female characters. I also have The Bells by Dhonielle Clayton. The Bells is kind of interesting. It is about a world where there are these women called bells, and basically they have the power over beauty. They can change your body down to your very makeup of your bones and make you look however you want to look for, you know, a price. And the whole like culture around beauty and the bells is very fetishized, where the bells are like this weird exotic thing, and like they're bought and sold basically. Like it's kind of slavery, honestly, and it's just slavery put in a gilded cage. There's a lot of really interesting pieces to this story. The thoughts about what makes someone beautiful in a world where you can literally look like anything. You could have purple hair that stands straight up, and if you want that, you can have it. Like, it might not be considered beautiful to everyone, but the rules of beauty are so fickle in this world that it changes every day. There's also like a crazy villain. Oh my gosh, this princess. Like, she's chaotic evil. Like, if you're gonna put her on a D&D scale, like, chaotic evil. Like, she's a nut job and she's evil. So, like, if you're going for, like, a crazy-ass, ruthless, like, creepy villain, like, she's pretty dope. As fantasy, there's a lot of, like, it's kind of a weird, like, take on beauty and what is beauty, and, like, living in a place like Orleans, which is kind of loosely based around, I guess, like, the court of Louis XIV, maybe. You know, what is beauty, what is not beauty, how is it, like, of the beholder, like, it's so fickle, and it's just an interesting treatise. I enjoyed it. It was fun. I think I'm not sure if it's out yet. If it's not, it's coming out very soon, but the next book of the series is coming out this year, so look for it. I also recommend The Hate You Give by Angie Thomas. This is also a movie, so I feel like it could be a bit more spoilery here. This is about Star, who is a teenage girl, and she witnesses a police officer murder her childhood friend Khalil. And it's very much about the Black Lives Matter movement and what happens after a white adult police officer murders a 17-year-old boy who's unarmed. And this boy happens to be black, and how the media tries to spin it like, oh, he's a thug, or oh, like, he was doing something wrong, and he's just like, no, he was combing his hair. Like, he wasn't doing anything wrong at all. And it's a lot about finding your voice and speaking up for yourself and speaking out for what's right. And it is a movie too, so if I guess you want the abbreviated version, you could probably watch that. But it is really cool. It's about family, it's about finding your inner strength, it's about standing for what's right. It's really good. I really enjoyed it. I recommend. There's a reason they made it into a movie. It's pretty good. Last but certainly not least, I want to recommend Children of Blood and Bone by Tomi Adeyemi. Obviously, this is on this list. It's like, it was the most hyped book probably of 2018. Like, everybody was talking about this book. Everyone's still talking about this book. It's dope. Tomi Adeyemi built this really interesting fantasy world, kind of loosely based around West African culture and religion, and it's so fascinating. Like, it's just an immersive world with, like, interesting cultures. I think that's kind of what sets it apart from other books that are similar to it, because there's a lot of books that are about, you know, interesting exotic cultures and, you know, fighting to overthrow a dictator. There's a lot of books like that, but what sets this one apart in particular is that it's so, like, richly developed, where this world, it just has its own, like, it's hard to put it into words. It has, like, this je ne sais quoi about it that makes it feel like it's truly its own place, kind of like, you know, like Hogwarts in Harry Potter, where that has its life of its own, like the setting. So I kind of feel it's the same here, because the setting in here is such a big part of it, and the cultural aspects around it. and it's just really good. It's so immersive. And also that it's based specifically on West African culture and religion really sets it apart from the pack, because we get so many faux European stories. We can't like throw a rock without hitting one. It also makes you feel like a breath of fresh air, because we're getting something completely different that is also fantasy and interesting and wonderful, so I highly recommend. Alright, so those are my recommendations for Black History Month. I hope you're picking up some authors of color this month, because it is important to read books by authors who have a different cultural perspective than you. That's how you learn about the world and other people and their thoughts and feelings and emotions. Like, you also learn about that in real life, obviously, but a really good way to really immerse yourself in someone else's thought process and culture is through a book. So please try to pick one up. Let me know in the comments down below, what are you reading for Black History Month? Are you reading any authors of color? If so, what are you reading? Leave them down in the comments below. If you like this video, make sure you give it a like. And if you want to see more videos, make sure you subscribe. And I'll see you guys soon. Bye!